Hello, this is Joe Peters. Um, this is Joe Peters for MomFit with Joe Peters. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network and the Hair Network on Singo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Singo TV app in the respective iOS and Android devices. While you are downloading, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Singa TV is also available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick in all the smart TVs since 2016. And while you are there, if you are not following me yet in the beautiful world of the internet, go to your Facebook or your Instagram and follow me at Joe Unicorn Coach. I handle my own social media and I am here to support you into winning the marathon of motherhood without burnout. So, if you have a question, a challenge, something that you will love additional support, make sure to send me a message. And then, if I don't have the answer, I will find an expert like Vanessa to come into our show. And together, we are going to support you. The mission of MomFed is to create that sisterhood, motherhood community where we can all thrive and we can all remember that we are never alone. So today I am really, really excited to have Vanessa here. Vanessa and I are going to be talking about something that normally is not put in the same phrase, that is flow and sustainable self care for mothers, for our body, our mind, and our spirit. And learning to love ourselves on every season of the life, especially in that transition from motherhood. And Vanessa Wright is a certified Beautiful You life coach, writer, and a speaker. She guides mothers in midlife to create sustainable self care practices with her signature flow method that we are going to be learning about today. So they can reclaim their time, their energy, and their creativity. Vanessa is also a published author, and her work can be found in This I Know Is True, published by the Kind Press. For the last 6 years, she's worked as the homeschoolism and a special project coordinator for Big Life Journal. From 2018 to 2022, she contributed to the Homeschool Mom blog, sharing her family journey and encouraging other moms with her insight, tips, and reflections. She is a long-time homeschooling mom of three teens. She loves hot tea, taking walks, overseeing gifts, eating dark chocolate, and she never has enough of pens and journals. She and her family live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we in the team of MomFed are delighted to have you with us, Vanessa. Welcome to the show. I would love to start with I ask every single one of my guests for a phrase. And then I want us to talk a little bit about the phrase that you pick. And the phrase that you pick was go with your flow and feel the magic glow. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joe. It is an absolute honor to be here and speaking with you this morning. Thank you.
I am super, super happy to have you here. Let's go talk a little bit about that phrase, Lau. So, why that is your favorite phrase? Go with the flow and feel the magic glow.
Oh, as I just really want moms to tap into their flow and to feel movement, right? We do not live in sort of stagnant lives. We don't stay in stagnant seasons, right? We are constantly moving, we are constantly growing. We have to be flowing. And when we can kind of lean in and tap into the magic of that, then I think that's when we can really seek and find that joy in the midst of all the challenges that do come with, being a mom. And, the challenges don't go away. They just change as you grow and as your kids grow.
Absolutely. So, let's gonna talk a little bit about your story, how you start helping moms with your flow method, and where that desire for making that impact in such an important area that is motherhood grow in your heart.
Yes. So Back in 2015, 2016, our family went through some pretty challenging and really, really, really stressful times. So by the time 2018 came around, I was working with a coach. I've worked with a coach of some sorts since 2009. I'm a huge fan of that you should have some support for yourself. You can't do it all by yourself. And she asked me, she said, "So, how are things flowing for you?" And I had a pause and I just said to her, "There is nothing flowing. I feel like I am stranded on the side of the riverbank. I am like gasping for air and I don't know. I'm barely making it to like make one step in front of the other. I just felt so burned out." And she said, "Okay, well, let's talk about that next time." We were wrapping up the call. And I'm a writer. I love words. So that word flow stuck in my head that day. And that weekend, I just started writing down, I wrote FLOW. And I said, "Okay, Vanessa, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to fix everything for you and make you better. How can you get into flow?" And so I just created my own little self-care practices based on the word flow. And we can talk about that in a minute. And it was just that one little spark. It was just that little change that I needed to make. And then I started committing to myself right then and there that I was going to take better care of myself so that I could take good care of my kids, my family, my job. And it just kind of snowballed really from there. Yeah.
I think that is some of that. I think one of the common paths and discussion that we have here in the show is the journey that we as mom had to realize that as better we take care of ourselves, as better we can take care of others. And that selfless love that was taught to us early on when we were young is actually not very accurate. So let's go start a little bit about what is flow. We are
Yes.
talking a lot about that flow.
Yes, let's dive in. So I'll walk through each part of it. And F is the foundation of it all. It's to feed your body, mind, and spirit. And I do like to tell people like your flow is going to be different than my flow. It's going to be different than your friends, but this is just a little gentle container so that you can take the decision fatigue and take the stress out of figuring out how to take care of yourself. So when I talk about feeding your body, mind, and spirit, what are you feeding yourself? Like, how are you nourishing your body that works for you, not for your friend, not for whatever the person on Instagram tells you should eat? How are you feeding yourself? Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting good sleep or enough sleep? I know depending on the age and stage of motherhood you're in, sleep can be challenging, right? I joke now that my kids are teenagers and so they want to stay up till midnight talking. I'm like, I cannot do this, guys. I'm tired, but it just kind of shifts. So again, what are you feeding your body? What are you feeding your mind? That looks like what kind of are you listening to the news all the time? What are you reading? What music are you listening to? Who are you in conversation with, right? Who are you talking with on a day-to-day basis? And your spirit really just looks like, how are you just feeding that spirit? How are you feeding that soul? Is it through prayer? Is it through meditation, mindfulness, being out in nature? Are you turning off the noise? How are you taking care of all of yourself, right? Like as your foundation to really get into that flow. So that's what F stands for. Yeah. L is to love yourself and lean into your season of life. And this is always a challenge when I always ask my clients, tell me 3 things you love about yourself. And they struggle. It is a struggle. And that makes me sad. And I'm like, nope. I said, we're sitting here until you do it. Because you've got to love yourself and you need to lean into the season of life that you're in. So, for me, that looks like I'm in a season of life with my oldest child he's flown and grown. He's moved out and he's gotten his first job. I still have 2 17-year-olds at home. Whereas, I have friends that still have toddlers and babies and it's just different. So how can you surrender in a positive way to the season of your life that you're in and love yourself while you're doing that? Right. O is owning your time and space. I will raise my hand. This is my hardest. I struggle with this still. How are you owning your time? Are you overbooked? Are you overscheduled? Are your kids overbooked and overscheduled? Do you not have any breathing space at all? Do you not have any space for yourself within your home that's just for you, and your time. How are you making time for yourself? I always tell people that the dishes are going to get done, your laundry's going to get done, your work, all those things that you put first on your list, put them down because they're going to get done. Put the things that nourish you first. You're not being selfish. So that is all about owning your time and space. And then that just leads into the last part here, which is W, to weed out anything that's not working so you can welcome in something new. I find so often that we kind of get down in those weeds, right? And we can't see 5 feet in front of us because we're constantly struggling just to do the daily grind of stuff with motherhood. So what do you have to pull out? What needs to go away so you have some breathing space, and then you can welcome in something new that you may not have even imagined. You got to give yourself that breathing space. So that's flow in a nutshell.
Okay, love it. So flow, feed yourself, love yourself, own your time, and then with and well to have room to welcome you. That is perfect for this time of the year in the spring.
Yes.
Now, for moms, I love how you are saying and are talking about something that we don't talk, and is that every stage of motherhood is different, and then we need to learn to surrender that is going to be different. And I will even say not only is going to be different, but is within the same stage is also going to be different for all of us, because depending on our children and our personality, we are going to face different stages better. For example, like with one of my friends, is funny because she's really enjoying her newborn phase. I did not enjoy my newborn friends at all. I am
Mm,
enjoying now that we there's a toddler and we can talk and we can um, role play. So I think that is good. The message that you have of giving moms permission to honor themselves and what feels good for them. And you did that with the F for feeding, and then also with that stages of life. Now, for every mom that is new to some of these and is saying, like, oh my God, all of that feels so good, but I'm so overwhelmed, how they can incorporate that flow into their daily lives.
absolutely. And what I love to tell moms, if they're brand new to, if self-care feels foreign to you and you've never taken care of yourself ever, um, just lower the bar in yourself. What are the easy, what I like to call the low hanging fruit? What can you grab easily to do for yourself? And honestly, I would say just start with the F. Forget the other letters for now. Just start with, how are you feeding your body? And even if it's just feeding your body well for a month or 3 months, right? There's no timetable here, right? If you focus in on that, and then maybe you add in the feeding your mind and then the feeding your spirit, and you just work on F. F is really the foundation, because what I like to tell people is we're physical beings walking around on this planet. We still have to take good care of our bodies and our minds, right? If we want to do all the other things, if you are burned out, not eating, not drinking enough water, not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to do all those other things that you want to do, even on a day-to-day basis. So I would say just start with simply with the F, and then get yourself started there, and then you can move into reflecting in on the L, the O, and the W. And I like to personally work seasonally. So my spring, I work, so spring, I just wrote my spring flow down the other day. So these are just the things I'm not worrying about what I'm doing this summer. I'm not keeping everything same for the fall. Like, seasons change. I'm going to be different in 3 months. My situation may be different in 3 or 6 months. So don't tie yourself to something that feels unattainable. Also, I think as moms, like, we just want to go, like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit, I'm never going to change from it. And then when it doesn't work the first time, you're like, oh, I'm the failure. But it's not you, it's that you've put these ridiculous expectations on yourself.
And I love, 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 because that is a very female energy. And is a very strong contrast with the society male energy of this is flow, and then tomorrow you need to commit to do all the flow, FLOW, and then you just push through it and wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do whatever you need. And that is a very male hustle energy. That is how, unfortunately, society is being designed, and it's not how we are first, and then second, is not realistic when we are moms and are have our business. So I love, absolutely love how you are like, you know what, like children learn to read, they don't learn flow at once, they start learning the F, and then when that is
Yes.
the L, so it is okay, mamas. You don't have to go into that male energy mentality of all or nothing. Oh, I'm gonna follow Vanessa advice, and tomorrow I'm gonna do all four letters flow and figure out. Because what happened is, especially for females, then you start waking up 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, staying over until midnight, and then you do it for 1 or 2 weeks, and then you're like, Vanessa, you lied. This is not making me feel
That's
better.
right.
I'm freaking
No.
exhausted. This is not for
Yeah.
me. And then goes into what you were talking about, of that feeling of failure, of what is wrong with me that I cannot do it. So I love that we encourage you to pick any of them. And then the other one that I will say is, I don't know, you can disagree with me, but doesn't have to be in order,
Right.
because I think
Exactly.
that we are being taught that we need to always try the hardest thing first. And I think that sometimes showing our grace is try the easiest one. So go into the show notes with Vanessa and Flow and see which of those letters, which of those things feels the easier for you, the one that you are more excited. And then start with that one. It could be W. It could be that because it's a spring,
It,
you are going to declutter and let go and
yes.
welcome new things. It doesn't have to be in order. So I love, love,
It's all
love that.
cyclical. Yes, it is a cyclical. I actually have a graphic on my Instagram, and I've used it in my newsletter. It's flow. Yes, we're flowing, but I also have it like it's very cyclical, right? They all kind of go into each other, and I love that. And one thing I talk a lot about is this concept of decision fatigue, where mothers, we're making like, how many decisions a day do we have to make for everybody and everything? And so by the time you get to yourself, you're like, I mean, I've had mothers tell me that they don't even know what TV shows they like. They don't know what snacks they like because they've not ever they haven't paid attention to themselves in so long that they don't even know what they like anymore. And that breaks my heart. So what I love about flow is that when you just take a few minutes and just start making notes of like what's working for you, then when you get that time, so say tomorrow you get 20 minutes to yourself or 20 minutes for self-care, you already have a list of things that you know that works. You go and do it. You don't have to sit there for 10 or 15 minutes going, should I read? Should I walk? Should I do this? Right? Because you've already have a little plan in place, and then you can just go right into whatever that item is or that self-care task is that makes you feel good. Because mom brain is real. I just went through menopause last summer. Menopause brain is real. Like I can't keep track of like 650 things for everybody all the time and myself. So it's also just giving yourself some space to eliminate some of that decision fatigue and elevate the importance of taking care of yourself.
And I think that that is something else to normalize into why we need to start changing the way that we parent, like especially when we are with others. Something that drives me crazy with my partner is I tell him something, like I have something in my mind and I'm like, oh, please do this or remember this. And he's like, oh, remind me tomorrow or send me a reminder. I'm like, no, I'm telling you to do it because I need to take it out of my load. If I need to remind you
Yes.
tomorrow, I still have to keep it in my mind. I need you to take it out of my brain. So I love that. Now, that is a great segue and connection into why moms are doing a disservice and actually can't wait to start taking care of themselves.
Mm. I said I created this out of a personal need of like pure burnout, where like medically it was like she's not doing well, like physically. My practitioners, and they were like, okay, you've got to do something, because like look at this and that. And again, this is my own personal story. um I I want mothers to know that you can be a good mom and also take good care of yourself. You are modeling that for your kids, and even your little kids, right? You have to model taking care of themselves. Like you want your child, right? You're always telling them, "Oh, hey, go brush your teeth and get a nap and drink your water. Don't do that." So you've got to give yourself some of that energy. I think you even said like this is a marathon, not a sprint. Like if you think you're gonna just go like full throttle from the time your kids are ages 0 to 7 and then get to them where they're 7, 8, and you're gonna just be still high energy, like you've got to pace yourself. I'm telling you, as somebody who has 3 older teens, you have to pace yourself. And I was not doing that. I threw myself into everything that was just about my kids. And then by 2018, and I had started working from home the year before, and I was in perimenopause and my kids were all in puberty, and everything just kind of felt like this storm hitting me all at once. And that's when I had to say, this is, I can't keep doing what I've been doing. It's not working. It's not working.
And I love that. And then the reality, and that is part of one of the reasons why the mission of this show is so important, is what we often see is the wake up call comes too late. It's not until we are burnt out. It's not until we are on the verge of a breakdown. It's not until we are depressed, taking medicine, that we start saying, oh, what about me feeling that I can take care of myself first? And that is not selfish. And that is actually very selfless, being able to make sure that I am okay. Absolutely. Now, let's gonna talk a little bit about what are some of the biggest challenges that you see on moms, and then maybe even talk about like in the three main phases of motherhood, like early years, middle of the
Sure.
plan, and then teens. What are some of the biggest struggles into actually not only putting in practice a flow to glow, but also make it a sustainable habit, and it's not
Mm.
something, it's not another flavor of the month.
Right. No, that's a great question. And I said I'm going to be 50 next year, early next year, and so I have the privilege and honor of like kind of looking back and saying, wow, I've been a mom for almost 19 years, and I've been on this earth for almost 50. How can I support? And those early years, I really, really struggled. I had postpartum depression twice, very, very badly after my twins were born. My son was 22 months old when I had twins. And so it was a lot all at one time. Um, and I just, I was barely surviving. I was barely surviving, right? I look back at it now and I get very emotional. Like I was barely surviving, and I don't want that for people. Like it is hard, like that, those early years when you're not sleeping and like maybe your baby's not sleeping and if you're working or not working, it doesn't matter. Like it's hard. It's hard. And that's why I said, if you can just find 5 minutes to yourself, 10 minutes to yourself, and also ask for help. I think, especially in those new years, those first years, let people help you. Let people help you. People are going to say yes to every single person, with some boundaries in place. Like, can I come over and hold your baby? Well, no, but I do need a meal. No, can you send me I need a Starbucks gift card. Like, set those boundaries in place and take the help when you can get it. And just, again, your house probably won't look like it did before you had kids. Let that go. I'm just telling you, because it's not going to. So like, let that go, because your babies are babies for just a very tiny, tiny little amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So that's what I would say. And then as they get a little bit older and you get to those middle years, right? They're more independent. So maybe you feel like, ooh, I've got some more time for myself. Like, don't fill that newfound time where your kid's a little bit older with more stuff that doesn't actually serve you. You know what I'm saying? Like, which is when I talk about owning your time. So don't overstuff everything because you feel like you can, or because you think your kids need to be overscheduled and in 16 different activities and all that stuff. Because again, you're just building up for that, as you said, that inevitable burnout that's going to come. And I don't want that for people. So this is what I'm talking about, like sustainability. And of course, this will look different family to family. And then, if you're like me and in the teenage season of life, like just buckle up because it is a completely different, like it's just different, right? Like, yes, my kids all feed themselves and they can cook. And I've taught them some really good life skills. And, we chose to homeschool. So my kids are around, like mostly with me or around or whatever for a lot of their lives. And but it is hard because even though they are older, I liken teenagers or toddlers with hormones. So then you're kind of dealing with that. But that's when you really have to have those start work, really making sure your boundaries are in place for how to interact with people, taking time for yourself. For me, when I was 45, a couple years ago, I said, I'm not waiting for them to graduate high school. I want to become a life coach now. I want to plant this seed now because I didn't want to wait till I was 50 and all my kids have been graduated. I wanted to start something now. Start planting your seeds now, just little tiny seeds. If I can really encourage moms, even if your kids are little, just plant those seeds now. Don't let them just kind of wither on the side. Like, just plant those seeds for yourself, and you deserve to have that too.
And I was laughing because I only have one kid that is a toddler, but one of my good friends had also have two teenagers. And then she was saying, like, I love my kids and they are amazing human beings, but as a teens, they are horrible people to deal with. And then we were talking about all that, like the hormones and like it's
A
really
lot.
challenging. And I think that it's good that we realize that it probably will take 25 years before we get even closer to what our life was before kids.
Mm,
And then back then, when that happened, we probably will not have the energy that we have when we were not having kids. So the reality, like you said, is our life will never be like it was before having kids. It's a complete transformation
yeah.
in your life, in how you feel, in your relationship with your partner, if you have a partner, in your relationship with your family. And that is one of the
Mm,
things that I think that is important to keep having that anchor back into self-care and taking care of you and having those boundaries. Let's gonna talk about that on the boundaries because I think that throughout their life we get challenged with that. So what are some of your tips for the moms that are listening that want to start doing some of this flow approach and are struggling because they are people pleasers because they never learned how to hold boundaries? What you can share with them into what are some of those baby steps that they can take for that?
yeah, I wish I would have asked myself this question, like, 15 or 20 years ago. Um, and the question I would ask is, like, what's going to happen if you don't do this, right? What if you keep letting everything just flash over you? And if we're kind of going with that flow metaphor, what's going to happen if you just keep going over those waterfalls with zero protection, no life vest? Like, you're going to drown. Like, you're going to drown. So you have to build your self-care. You build some protectiveness around you, not to keep people out. And I want to say, like, I have been in places where I went from having no boundaries to like super strict boundaries because I didn't know how to kind of be in the middle, right? I was so burned out that I think some of us who, raising my hand, oldest daughter, people pleaser, Enneagram 2, all the helper energy here. um, I went from like doing everything for everybody to not wanting to do anything for anybody. And so you have to find that middle ground, right? There's that middle ground. Again, it's asking for help. It's, if depending on the ages of your kids, my biggest thing is like teach your kids to do stuff around the house. You are not there to do everything for them. Like, you have to teach them to. My kids, when my twins, when they were 4, loved to clean toilets. I don't know why, but they did. So guess what? I used to let my 4-year-old twins clean the toilets all the time because they loved to do it and they felt important. So great. They got out of that after 3 months, but it was a skill. Teach them how to cook, teach them how to do their laundry in age appropriate things, because, um, you know, you can't do everything for everybody all the time. For like, think about that, for like 18 or 20 years. Like, I mean, you could, but you're gonna, again, it's there's better ways for you to be spending your time. Teach them skills. That's probably my biggest thing with the boundaries is like have the boundary, like I am the mother, but I'm also not here to like clean everything for you and like you have to teach them how to do things. And asking for help and raising your flag when you've just said, hey, I've had enough. I was not good at that. And that's why I got into burnout twice, is because I just held everything in and pretended I was fine. Right. Because I wanted to be I was homeschooling full time. I was working and this, and I just wanted to make sure everything was looking perfect. And deep down inside, it was so not. And that was the hard thing. Right. Just being honest with yourself too.
And that is a great door to start talking about uh, something that I'm very passionate about, and how a lot of that trying to have everything perfect and that what I call good girl syndrome come a lot into how we grow up and the expectations that we in society put in ourselves into what it should look like for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, talking about like your childhood does play a huge role in that, like how you were raised and like what you kind of think you should be modeling. Like, and it's funny because I was very blessed. Like my mom, she was an amazing mom. She did everything and did it always looking perfect, like dressed to the nines, make everything always good. And then I felt like a complete hot mess as a young mom because I could barely, keep my stuff together, and I wasn't combing my hair and like I just wasn't doing that. I felt so bad about myself for so long. And then I chose to homeschool my kids. So that meant I didn't have free time during the day, right? Because they were there, especially when they were little. Like they need constant, I was teaching them, or we were all on field trips and I had to cook all the food from scratch because two of my kids had bad allergies and couldn't eat anything except unless I cooked for them. So there was just a lot of pressure I put on myself, that because I was trying to model something that my mother wasn't asking me to model that, but in my head, I was like, oh, I should be. And so you really have to be gentle with yourself. And also, can we be honest? Like mothering now in this day and age is not what it was when we were growing up. It's just very different. Like our lives are different. Technology is different. Society is different. So cut yourself a break and know that you are doing the best you can for your kids in that moment. That's one of my biggest pieces of advice.
And I think that is very important when we start reflecting that, because I think that we all have memories like that where we are like, oh, I create this image and that expectation. Even when my mom never asked me, even when my dad never asked me, that is what I saw happening, and that is what therefore I learned. And then connecting that with how we are doing it with our children, like you were saying, into teaching them to cook and clean, and saying, because we always said, monkey see, monkey do. We can tell them in words whatever we want. The likelihood of them doing exactly what we did is almost 100%. They are going to see how we behave, how we take care of ourselves. And that is going to be the standard. And that is going to be what they are going to recreate in adult life. So I think that is also good, that question of how do I want my children to be as adults? How I want, so especially for moms of boys, how I want my boy to be as a husband, as a father, what kind of role I want them to participate with their partners. And I think that that also sometimes give us that feel. I was with another guest a few weeks ago saying that sometimes she worked with clients that are struggling so much into feeling that they deserve the love and the take care, that sometimes for her is a good entrance point to just start making them think in their kids. Like, okay, in
Mm,
20 years, how will you like your kid to be? Will you like to? And then they start mirroring what they are doing with what their kids are doing. And when they see it mirror, they're like, oh no, I don't want my kid to go through that, or I don't want my kid to feel like that. Okay, so the best way to avoid that is taking care of you.
yes, yes. And I'll tell you a quick fun story. A few weeks ago, my oldest son, who I said he's very, very strong-willed child from like day one. Like not even it was very clear from day one. And he just got a full-time job. He's an emergency medical technician. He has his own apartment. He did this all on his own. And but there was definitely like this with with me because I was so worried for him. Like, I don't think you're, just a lot of worry that I have for him. Um, because I also know he was my kid who was a hot stove toucher. Like, he actually touched the stove twice, not once, twice, because he didn't believe me that it was hot. So I use that as like, you're going to have a kid. If you have a kid who's like the literal hot stove toucher, right? Well, fast forward to, he texted me a few weeks ago and he sent me a picture. He's like, Mom, I'm meal prepping. You're meal prepping? You're not even 19 and you're meal prepping. And I was so excited. I shared it with all my friends. I'm like, look, my kid's meal prepping, because he had the skills, he had the tools. Because as my kids got older and I started working more and my schedule changed, I said, y'all have to start cooking more for yourself. I can't cook all 3 meals. I know I can't do it anymore. So but I had been teaching them, they were always with me in the kitchen from the time they were 2, so that they could do that. So just to get that message from my almost 19-year-old, I was like, yes, right? And that felt really good. I'm like, I don't care. He can't do calculus, but he can meal prep, and he's doing a job that he loves. And so that felt kind of like a little winning moment for me as a mom. Yeah. Because there were days when I wasn't sure that I was going to survive with him.
Absolutely. And I think that is a great point that you touch, because yeah, I think that one of the most dangerous things that society in a male energy dominated world is doing for us mom and females is that toxic positivity, and that you need to be always happy, you need to be always good, and then the Tony Robbins of the world and the male that say like, if you do the flow every day, then you're going to control your state, and then you're going to be good all day. And then that works very good for males because they have 24-hour cycles. But for us, with our hormones, with our periods, with how we work, that is almost, if they were evaluating us for our ability to swim and we are a parrot, like
Right.
it's going to be really challenging. So, like you were saying with the bad days, I like to tell my clients and people, it's not if, it's when.
Yep.
And knowing that because of the hormones, because of the pressure of society, because our own expectations, we are going to have those days that we are like going to be like, we are the worst mom in the world and
Yep.
I'm ruining my kids.
I had a day like that last week.
Even if we are doing the flow. So, what are some of those tools that moms can use to anchor themselves? And first, don't judge and say, oh, I'm having this hard day.
Yep.
Don't try to push it,
Yep.
but process it and then use your flow to glow as one of those tools to help them to go back into the big picture.
Yeah. So one of the practices that I created and it came out of the the love yourself and lean into your season of life, was joy journaling, not gratitude journaling. Gratitude for me is different. This is joy journaling. And I've been keeping a joy journal for the last 2.5 years. And I started it because things were just rough. Things were rough. So I said, you know what, for this week, this is back in November 2021. So I'm just going to write down 1 or 2 things every day at night that brought me joy that day. And I'm talking about things. Sometimes it was just chocolate chips brought me joy if it was a really, really hard day. But you know what? The more I started writing down the joys, and I've only missed maybe a handful of nights in 2.5 years, you start seeing patterns of the joy. And then when you start writing down the joy, you start looking for the joy the next day, and you start being on the lookout for these little drops of joy every day. And then you start seeking it out. Even like last week, we had a really rough week in my house, but I did not miss my joy journaling. And that is something you can write it in your phone, even if you don't, just a piece of paper. I don't have a fancy journal. It's just in my little planner thing here. I just have a list. And it was just that simple practice of writing down what brought you joy. Not gratitude. Gratitude's different. Joy. I feel joy differently in my body. It has made such a huge difference. And anybody can do this. It doesn't cost anything. You don't need any special tools. It's just looking for the daily joy.
And talking about your example with the meal prep, I think that it came to my mind. I work with this with my clients. Is I was doing a research and found that few decades ago, the um, guides of Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro were having a lot of challenges because people will start but not finish. And if you are any familiar with those two climbing mountains, it is freaking expensive. Like
Yeah.
climbing those mountains is really easily 20 grand. So
Yeah.
you can see how there was a marketing problem because people were like, "Oh, I'm not going to pay 20 grand if a lot of the people that I know go and not, don't finish." Long story short, they found that it was because people will lose hope into their progress. So they just make a little change every 2 hours. Every guide tour will stop and make everybody look back to realize how far they have become every 2 hours. And just that skyrocket the finishing percentage of people getting to the summit. I thought about that with your joy journal because in those bad days, the only thing that we can think is how we screw up, how we yell, how we didn't do it. But if we have that available, we can actually remember all those other things that bring us joy. That my son told me that I was a good helper because I gave him medicine, like things like that. That well, then remind you and balance in those
Yeah.
hard days that joy of it's okay. It's okay to have these feelings right now. And these are not absolutes.
Yeah.
And this is seasonal, not permanent.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's just like giving ourselves, I just felt this big deep breath come over me. It's like just giving ourselves that, yes, that space, that grace to lean in, because you are going to have bad days, because you're a human being. We're not robots, right? Okay. Our kids are going to have bad days because they're human and they're growing and they're learning. My kids are so tired of me telling them that their brains won't be fully developed till they're 25. Like, mom, you've been telling us this for like, we know. Okay, that's like, I know, but I just have to keep reminding myself, because it can get frustrating, right? Especially as a parent, and if you're type A and you like to get things done and all that kind of stuff. But if you just spend a few moments at night, I promise, and even if you could just find one thing, start with one. Start with one. I would say start with one and just see the patterns, and you'll start noticing also, like, if you're in an age and stage with motherhood that maybe you're like, what are my passions? What are my joys? When you start writing these things down, you may start noticing a pattern of like, oh, wow, I haven't, for me, like writing, like maybe you like to write, or maybe you like to read more fiction, or maybe you want to try a new recipe, like all these little things that we keep putting on the back burner. If you start noticing the joy when you're doing them, like that's just like little indications for you, right? They're just little things to follow, to go and to explore more, because we're really good at setting up activities and exploring with our kids. Like, take some of that for yourself, explore your interests, play, get curious. What can you do for yourself? Because you get to live your life also. Like, you're not just doing things for everybody else. You get to live your life in full and joy also.
I love, love, love that. And I will say that what you were saying is I don't saying this for you. I'm saying this for myself because now you are 63, bigger than me, and then it's easy for my brain to just have expectations that are not aligned with the normal development of your brain and you as a young adult. So I love, love, love that, Vanessa. Um, how the moms, I'm the unicorn coach, I'm all about magic. How in your experience moms can start feeling the magic glow, feeling that glow, that start feeling magical, that start almost feeling like, is this possible?
Mm, I think I think it's just getting back in touch with, um, when I say with who you are, like, what are those things? Remembering those things that make you unique, that make you who you are. For me, I didn't write for probably 10 or 15 years. Like, so when my kids were born, I just didn't write. And when I started writing again back in 2017, just like journal, I just felt this spark come back, right? That it had always been there. I just had kind of put it on the back burner for a while. So, like, try to remember those things that make you you, like, because you get to be a mom, but you also get to be your own fully alive person, human being that's not attached to necessarily being a mom. And being a mom is part of you, but it's not all of you. And I would say, like, just, whether you're brainstorming with a friend or listening to something yourself, just try to remember those things that, light you up and make you feel happy and joyful and passionate about something. And, really find time maybe once a week to like lean into that at first until you can to build it into more, because that's what I really think is can kind of keep you sustained on this journey, right? With motherhood.
I love it. Vanessa, as we start closing, I would love for you to give us a last message. What is the last message for all these women, all these moms that are watching us around the world into their flow and their glow? And remembering again, the flow from Vanessa is feed yourself, body, mind, soul, love yourself, own your time and your boundaries, and then wait so you can welcome more. What will be that last message on that flow, Vanessa? And then if they fall in love with you, if they fall in love with the idea of building that flow, where they can find you, where they can learn more from you.
Sure. I would just say start small, start something today, commit to yourself. You have to keep your word to yourself, right? You owe it to yourself. That's why I say self care is your job. It is not your child's job, your partner's job, your friend's job. It is your job. So take some ownership of it, take responsibility of it, and say yes to yourself. That's my biggest thing I would say to end with. And then I would love to connect. I'm only on Instagram. I keep it simple. I'm at Vanessa N. Wright on Instagram, and my website is vanessanwright.com. And I'm always sharing tips and ideas on how to build various parts of the sustainable self care as we go along on this wacky and wild and wonderful journey of motherhood.
Okay, so I hope that everybody had a fantastic time listening to Vanessa and really seeing how the journey of a flow can be something sustainable for you every day, and picking what part of that flow you want to start today. I would love for you to write to me at Joe Unicorn Coach in Instagram, or Joe Unicorn Coach in Facebook, or Vanessa at Vanessa and Write on Instagram. Which of those four letters are you going to try now, today, this weekend? Are you going to feed yourself? Are you going to love yourself? Are you going to own your time and your boundaries? Or are you going to let go on the clutter so you can welcome? Thank you so much, Vanessa. This was a pleasure to have you here, sharing all your inspiration and absolutely how you were able to do that heroine journey, and now you are impacting the life of so many others around the world. For all our
Thank
listeners, thank you so much for watching us. Make sure that you give us some love, subscribe, like, comment. That is the only way that we are going to be able to reach more moms, more people, more the message that we want, that is that you can win the marathon of motherhood without burnout. You can have it all without doing it all. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the programming and news of this single TV network. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.